This is Joaquin Xavier from the Voice Party Podcast. This episode has been brought to you by All Roads Overhead Garage Doors. Call now, 510-375-8756. That's 510-375-8756. Get your garage door today.
We're really excited to have you on here. We usually just goof around and I mean it's not always
That's
goofing
fine.
around. I know, yeah. We touch on serious stuff. Like now we started to when we first started this, we were just gonna goof around and have fun with it, and then I've had feedback of people. Oh man, I really enjoy listening to that. It helped me out, and like I said, it has been a lot of Richmond, because I grew up in Richmond. These guys are from the area. I do the stand-up comedy shows in Richmond because that was my thing, and doing so I came across a lot of people that are doing stuff for the community, like Urban Tilth, other people who are dedicating themselves to better Richmond and being from the area, man. I think I saw you. What year did you graduate? Because I could have sworn I saw you in high school, man.
I graduated from El Cerrito High back in 2008. Before that, went to Adams Middle School. Okay. Was at Cesar Chavez when it first opened up, but spent 2 years, first grade and kindergarten in Mara Vista. So that's just kind of like my timeline of school. I
graduated Richmond High in 2008. I think I did. Did you go to Snowball?
No, I didn't go to Snowball or prom or anything. Okay. I just was like, do I want to eat or buy this ticket? I'm gonna choose eating.
Yeah. Okay, never
very
mind.
responsible.
That is, yeah. Because you look familiar. I'm sure we ran into each other sometime.
Well, one of my friends that I grew up with since I was 7, he was going to Richmond High when I was a senior. So sometimes I'd meet up with him afterwards and see if he wanted to kick it. So I would just like hang out outside and wait for him to get out. And then it's like, hey, what's up? And we go do whatever we did. Yeah. Okay.
Man, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is like, what made you want to get involved in local politics? That's it. I'm asking that in my, because for me that seems kind of at my age. We're the same age, apparently, right?
Yeah, 29.
29. Yeah,
finally. I mean, I wish you didn't say I was 35 or 40. I was starting to feel bad about myself for a little bit.
I've heard 30 when I was like 22 because I had more facial hair and I was fatter, so.
No, yeah. As soon as I got elected, I met with some high schoolers about a policy they wanted to push through city council, and they did a presentation, and one of the questions was, what is your favorite app? And because I said Facebook, they looked at me and said, oh, this obviously has to be you. I responded, why does it obviously have to be me? Because Facebook is for old people, evidently. And when I asked them and inquired how old did they think I was, they voted. They said 34 to 37. That was a sliding scale they gave me. I was 26 at the time.
No.
They even carded me to make sure I wasn't lying. This is how serious it was. So thank you for just recognizing I'm 29.
Yeah. I think it's because of how you handle yourself. Sometimes it makes you look older.
You have an air of maturity to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, thank you very much.
You're in office, man, like me.
I mean, you have to...
I'm like a man-child. So
right. I mean, honestly, you have to have a certain... What's the word I'm looking for?
Persona.
There you go, persona. Thank you very much. You have to have a certain persona that makes you look above the fray, in my opinion, in order to excel in the court of public opinion. Unless, of course, you're a certain dignitary who I will not mention right now, who can pretty much get away with saying whatever he wants.
There's only one good thing about that. There's only one good thing. I have to find optimism in anything.
Of course.
The main good thing about that is I can confidently look at any kid in school now and say, anybody can be president. You can be president too. This just proved it. It is okay.
Are you worried about those D's? Pshaw.
No, but the thing.
I like the way you said that without. Oh man, that was excellent.
You didn't laugh at all. You said that with a completely straight face.
Because I have to spend a lot of my time laughing in the background, there's some things that get said at city council. I've had to exit myself from the stage and just had to go around in the back. It's like, I cannot, right now, I can't sit here with a straight face and pretend that this is professional. Then the rest of the dais kind of loses professionalism. And then, well, I heard they give classes about us at Berkeley College about how not to conduct yourself in a professional setting. Somebody told me that. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm glad we're contributing to people's education.
It's funny you say that because I saw a picture of you. Someone posted, and you're like screaming in this big meeting. I'm like, wow, I wonder what he was saying. That looks awesome. Like I wanna be able to. Because I have pictures of me performing and it looks like I'm saying something important. I'm actually just doing like dick jokes and stupid stuff, I was just wondering what you were saying in that moment. You know what I'm talking about? That picture where
I
screaming.
I screamed, just let the process happen and just vote already.
Okay.
That's what I was screaming after ramping myself up. I told myself I wasn't going to yell, and the more I started talking, the more my body started to lose control of its soul, and I was losing its grip. It's like holding on to a ledge and knowing that you just, this is it. That's what was happening to me in that moment as I was speaking. It's like, don't yell, Melvin, don't yell. Uh-oh.
Get loose.
Just kind of like, whoops. I'm sorry.
Oh man. That was one thing I was going to ask is I mean, it must be difficult because, working with people, how do I say this? Like being in those meetings with people who have completely different
viewpoints,
but like they're voting against stuff that, that's like hurting your loved ones in certain aspects, like I know your thing is rent. That's one thing I saw pictures and I've seen your post about the rent when you were running. And when you're in those meetings with people who have, who are pushing for the complete opposite of what you're for.
Well, I have done a lot over the years to tell myself that and teach myself that everybody's going to have a different viewpoint from me. There's 6, maybe about 7 billion people on the planet, and I'm not expecting them all to be identical to me or have identical viewpoints. I try to see other people's point of view to where it was crucial for me to make 3 categories of people. You got good people, apathetic people, then you got dickheads. I don't care if somebody has...
Some are all 3. I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, like me, there's some things I got to be apathetic about. Like, I just can't. No, I can't. Not today. I can't be in this one. But I don't care if someone has like an opposite viewpoint of me. I don't even care how hard they push on it. I care about how they push from it and if it's coming from a legitimate place. If it's coming from a sincere place, like this is what I actually believe, this is what I actually think is the right thing. Okay, I'm all right for agreeing to disagree and then having a code of conduct of how to, respect each other in those viewpoints, but still fighting without compromising anybody's integrity. However, for more of the ignorant folks, however, I might be less kind as to how I handle those viewpoints, and I'm still going to do what I do because I don't do what I do for me. I do it because I work with a bunch of people who have benefited from this, who have been in the struggle, and who sacrifice their time and their energy and put their vulnerability on the line just to make something happen. And I feel like it's my responsibility after getting people involved to be there on the front line too. I'm scared all the time as well, and it's hard to be in that kind of exposure, but you either believe in what you believe in or you don't, and everything that I fought for is because I believed in it and I believed who I was fighting for too.
With that, you just touched on that a little bit, and I wanted to ask, are you one of the younger people in these meetings, like in your age group? Because from what I've seen, everyone's like, oh, sorry about that, I forgot that.
Everyone looks like they're either Gandalf or Palpatine.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't say that. That was all him, Joaquin. No. But yeah. I mean,
both ideologically and physically, right? Like
Gandalf and Palpatine. That's a good. Oh,
I mean, it really just. It really depends on the setting. I mean, for a lot of years, it's like, yeah, I would constantly be the youngest person. The only time I wasn't the youngest person was when somebody brought their kids to a meeting because they couldn't find a babysitter. Then I was like, yes, finally, I'm no longer the baby of the group.
Who's with me?
The kids. I had to clean to a 7-year-old that made fun of my tan lines just to feel like that I was finally part of the old people. That's the thing you gotta love about kids. They're just frighteningly honest. You don't know whether to correct them or just give them props sometimes. It's like I'm confused, but I digress. Yeah, for a long time I was like starting to be like the youngest person, like for many years.
Started, right?
Yeah, well, no. My story, if we're backing out to the beginning, actually starts back in 2011. So that's when I was just turned 21, and I was looking for another job because as soon as I graduated high school, I was dealing with a lot of depression. That was the collapse of the market at the time. So being able to go after grants and get books or anything like that was difficult. Attempted to go to college, dropped out, started working under the table, cleaning up foreclosed homes for somebody, but it was like paying me $9 an hour, and I would stay there for like 8 hours out the day, but we did 5 hours worth of work, so I would only get paid those 5 hours. And because it was a contractor, there wasn't a consistent pay schedule. So there was a lot of times where I had to rely on friends that just so happened to be at events with spaghetti plates just to be able to feed myself and be like, okay, I'll be good until tomorrow at that time. So I dealt with that for a while, just helping support my mom, take care of basic needs, and then looking for another job. I was hanging out with a friend who got a random text message about a canvassing job just to go out and invite people to a meeting. And I said, oh, well, how much does it pay? $12 an hour. Now, at this time, $12 an hour was something I had never made in my life. Yeah. The closest I had was $100 a day for destroying stuff. That was the best job I ever had, and I ain't never had nothing like it since. So it was the community organization ACE. I didn't get hired at first because they found the people they need. They called me back a week later. First place they sent me to was to go door knocking in North Richmond to invite people to a community town hall meeting about community blight. Yes, I
2011?
Yes, 2011. I said North a what?
Yeah. Here's your bulletproof vest.
Like North, you want me to go where?
Oh, jeez.
And I had the joke I heard people talk about on AC Transit. We should pay an out-of-towner to walk around the block 5 times just to see if they make it. That was a joke passing through North Richmond on the 76. I was like, and you're sending me there to talk to strangers and go to their house and ask for them and give me your information.
Did they provide you with bulletproof vests? I'm curious.
I had to have a bulletproof smile and just say, hey, I'm from here, you're from here. How about we just...
Should have had a shirt on that said, I'm not from Central.
You know, this is a funny story about like how North Richmond is a different beast. Well, was it back then? It was a different beast. A friend of mine was... You know, at the time he was a graffiti artist, but in 2010 he was doing some stuff in North Richmond, and the cop pulled over and saw him, and he said, "Hey man, what are you doing here?" And you know, he was trying to cover. He had paint on his hands. He was trying to cover it up, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm just here visiting family." And he's a white guy. So then the police officer told him, "Listen, dude, I know almost every white family in North Richmond. I know I've never seen you before. I think you should just get the hell out of here as soon as possible." That was what the cop told him. Didn't care about the paint. Didn't care about.
Wow.
He's like, this was like 2009, 2010. Like that. North Richmond is a different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was. That's actually what I want to talk to you about.
And that's the funny thing though, because about that day and that whole experience, you know, I'm laughing and joking now about saying North Watt and everything, but I didn't end up going out there first day at work. Yeah. I'm just like, damn, first day at work, you just threw me right in the belly of the beast, but let's do it. But what I started to discover though was when I was talking to people, you know, nobody was like rude to me. I never felt like I was in danger at any point in my life. The only time I felt like I was in danger was when my canvassing partner would say, "Oh yeah, we better go for these knuckleheads." Come on. I was like, I was in the zone until you scared me about phenomenons. I like, don't tell me about the boogeyman. Let me just pretend like he don't exist.
And honestly, Some years ago, a friend of mine was dating a girl who had some family out in North Richmond. Like, this is maybe 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of us were hanging out together, and we made a pit stop where she worked. There was some corner store out there. And my other friend is getting nervous as heck. He's like shaking, and he's just like, dude, like, we need to get out of here fast. I said, look, the moment you start looking nervous is the moment you start looking like you don't belong. What's the key thing that North and Central Richmond are famous people, the citizens of either side are famous for asking each other? Are you from Central? Are you from North? If you look comfortable, even smile a couple of times, they may assume you belong here. But if you're looking over your shoulder, that's what's going to get both of us killed. Stop that. Laugh a little. I don't even care if you got to pretend to laugh. Just look like you're at ease.
It's like these rules, like when you encounter a bear. Make
yourself look big.
No, you have to get on the fetal position.
I mean, my friend was like 300 pounds, so he already looked big, He got that covered.
He was like, I don't want to be a target because I can't hide easily. I don't want to be seen out here. Let's go. That's why he was nervous. He's like, I hide in plain sight. This isn't hiding, sir.
It's funny because, like, when I was warned. I mean, I grew up in Richmond my whole life, so when I first someone warned me, oh, don't go to North Richmond. I remember someone telling, oh, stay away from North Richmond. But it's like, North Richmond is where my Uncle David lived. It's like, oh, you mean there? Oh, yeah. But, I mean, I knew it was dangerous, but just when they tell you, be careful, like, that's when you actually notice. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I knew that place growing up as a kid.
For you, it's not a big deal.
No, it was where my Uncle David lived.
But when people start saying stuff, it starts to, like, you get shook.
Yeah,
like,
he's like, wait, these candles are there all the time. Like, what happened there? And then you figure out, oh, shoot. Okay, that's why there's candles everywhere.
Over there and almost anywhere you go, I guess it's all about how you present yourself. Like, nothing is ever really as bad as it may seem. I heard a story. Somebody from LA was telling me a few years back that some police officers in LA had cuffed it was a Crip, and they arrested him. But rather than take him down to the police station, they left him in a blood neighborhood cuffed. And I sat at the edge of my seat thinking, so did this poor guy get murdered? Like, and they said actually what happened was the Pyrus or whoever they were, they found him, and knowing that this guy was not there on his own volition and seeing what the police had done, actually helped him get back to his own hood. I guess at the time there was peace between the two groups or whatever, and they know some manipulation when they see it. So if you come with the right energy and under the right circumstances, nobody's going to come after you.
But also the other thing about the perception thing too was, like, when I started getting down into the community, I was identifying people that felt the same way I felt about it, like had the same fear and wanted the same things. Like, no one wants to wake up to blight next to their neighborhood. Nobody wants to feel like it's attracting crime and violence. People want to come home, go to work, take your kids to school, bring them back safely, or know your kids can walk back safely. And that's what I started to identify in North Richmond, that these perceptions we created are they're real, but they're not as real as we like to make them. There's a lot of opportunity and passion to make a change and actually harvest, like, the good and solutions to come out of it. But people are so scared by the perceptions that were put out there that they never had a chance to really engage with people that do give a damn about the community. And what ended up coming out of that was I seen people show up to a community meeting, 200 people in the month that I was doing door knocking, to meet their mayor, the council member at the time, and their police chief. And later on down the line, what we were fighting for led to a policy being passed to address blight. So I started seeing the connection, like me just going out there, talking to people, seeing how much people cared, seeing people that could show up, can bring leaders to the table and actually lead to something tangible. And I also developed that philosophy, if I'm going to tell people to come out to this event or do this, I got to make my best effort to show up too, because I have to believe in this if I'm telling them to step out of their comfort zone, out of their homes, and take time out of their day to show up to something I need to believe in when I'm inviting these people to come out to, if I'm going to invite them.
Is it harder to get like younger people, young leaders to come out?
Yeah, really.
I mean, anyone really, right? Because it's
yeah. I mean, it really depends on the issue. I mean, everybody has an issue, but for like me as a community organizer, aside from being a council member, I've been a community organizer for 8.5 years doing this work. And with young folks, it really just depends on like what the issue is. And now I'm starting to see more and more young people get involved because they're seeing what's happening in their community. But in the beginning, it was just kind of like in one ear, out the other, because a lot of these issues are complicated.
Right.
And it's intimidating even for adults to want to try to jump into this. Like, I'm not an expert. I don't know what you're talking about. And I got to remind people, you don't have to be an expert in this. You just need to be an expert on your issue and what you want to see come out of it. Because nobody can replicate that. There's nothing that can, but people showing up to represent their issues is like one of the best things that can. And there are other people that can surround them who are experts to carry that message with them.
From living in Richmond and what since I was born to what it is now, what do you think has been the biggest? Because crime, I mean, is still there, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. What do you think has helped that? And do you think, I mean, you've been a part in that, or do you? No, yeah. I mean, you've seen it, but
no, I mean, there's a lot that's happened. I mean, because of what the crime used to be. I mean, there's like a lot of community groups and community leaders that really came together to engage with folks about how to like stop the violence. I mean, more programs and solution, better collaboration with like council members. Like Richmond is like one of those rare cities. Like you could see corruption amidst anywhere you go, but Richmond is one of those cities that will hold their council members accountable for what they want to see because of how politically engaged folks are. Like, I think the level of political engagement has increased a lot. I think the collaboration and making sure that community members are at the table or something that's increased, that's made it better. And the fact that there are so many stakeholders who are awake to the issue and community leaders taking charge, to where when I do see or hear crime, it's always terrible and tragic, but it always sounds like it's something that was provoked from other issues that we were unaware of. Like, there were folks that came down to council to tell us stories about people that were about to get into a fight with each other because the other person's son killed their son. And it turns out those folks were actually related to each other, but they were all about to go after each other because somebody started something somewhere else and people wanted to retaliate. But it took that intervention on that one individual, Rodney Alamo Brown, to discover that these folks were actually family members. Wow. And, cooled off the tension. So I think the fact that people are starting to intervene and be involved and actually show that a better Richmond is possible is what's changing. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, though. And then, as we're improving the community, gentrification and displacement is something that's scaring people too, where, someone said, like, I knew I was scared of gentrification and displacement when I seen somebody randomly running down South 23rd Street at 6:30 in the morning like it was the thing to do. I was like...
They're jogging in peace.
Yeah, last time I ran on South 23rd, I was running out. Like, you had your iPod and your armrest thing, your shoes. Like, that's $200 right there, my brother. Like, make some money off of this.
There's no pit bull after him.
I work in education, and I had a student who got into some trouble, and I took him aside in a chat. I was like, look, you don't have to steal, you don't have to rob from anyone. Like, you shouldn't be doing these things. There are other things that you can do, and right now you're young, so if they toss you in jail or whatever, it'll expunge from your record before you're 18, but you don't want to get into this habit and turn around and mess up and then not be able to find legitimate work later on either. And he said to me, Mr. L, if I run into you, not necessarily me specifically, just anybody, he wasn't threatening me.
Are you sure?
I would hope not.
No. Otherwise, how's he supposed to, pass English 4? I can't. But yeah, he's like, if I run into you on the street and I take something off you, then it wasn't meant for you to have in the first place. And I'm like, well, who taught you that? What reverse preacher taught you this weird spiritual belief that it just wasn't meant to be if I steal from you?
I do remember a kid looking at me when I broke up a fight at Nickel Park. This kid's like 7 or 8 years old. Oh, wow. I'm 20 at the time. Whenever I break up this fight, not only do I see 3, 4 more of them start to surround me, I was like, oh, no, y'all didn't. I'm like, I'm not that little girl.
Let this happen, sir.
I was like, I am not that little girl from Lost World. There ain't going to be no eating me today. I don't know what they told you. But,
Little Richmond Velociraptors.
But the little 7-year-old kid looked at me and said, what kind of lunch? And me said, I'll stick you too. I'm like, little boy.
I was like, excuse me, like, this is Mr. Miyagi versus like
I'm like,
the Cobra Kai guys
versus Daniel LaRusso before.
Start kicking all you guys down.
I'm like, do you not understand that the only thing preventing me from laying my hands on you is that I'm not a parent? Like,
pretty much.
You would not. It's like if you was my child, you would stay in your room all day after first cleaning up every single thing. Not a Lego would be left, and you would sit there for 4 hours and request to use the bathroom 3 meals a day, and you would stare at a white wall, not even the corners. I will have a sign that says stare here for hours, and then when I come back, just ask you, what have we learned? And your punishments concludes after you put every single Lego back in there. I do not want to see this in the hallway or we're doing it all over again. Little boy, do not mess with me, child. But I am not his parent, therefore I cannot do these things.
Living on 2 Ritz crackers every hour. Here you go. Come back in an hour and have your other 2 Ritz crackers.
Put it on the Ritz.
You eat oatmeal 3 times a day too. That's
be lucky if you get a spoon of brown sugar. Maybe if I'm feeling nice. After talking about I'm gonna stick you too. What? You are 7. Where did we learn this? This isn't Friday. You're not Craig. I'm not Debo. What are we doing?
I was driving.
A few years back, I was playing basketball with my goddaughter. She was 8 at the time, and or 7. And there is this young man who comes up and starts, picking at her, as kids do, about her shot. She's improved vastly since then. But it was a certain way that she was shooting underhand because she was comfortable that way. And then he was like, no, you got to flick with the wrist. You got to flip with the wrist, he said. And she's like, well, I'm not comfortable doing that yet. I'm still learning. And he kept picking and picking and picking until she got mad and yelled at him, all right, leave me alone. I said, that's all right. We're going. And then he goes, what are you talking about, bitch? I was like, excuse me, did you just? So I was like, go on, kid, go on. I said, look, you don't, and I actually yelled this at the kid. I said, you don't cuss at people. You don't, you know what I mean? That's not what you do. You're like, because the kid was like 9. I'm like, what are you, 9? And you cussing at little girls who call people bitches? What's wrong with you? Yeah. I was like, if I was your father, who probably isn't present in your life, I would turn you over my knee and I would think that I was living in Arkansas all over again, because this is the kind of thing they did. You know what I mean? And spank you and then turn you into your mother. And if she was functional, she'd spank you too. But because I live in California, and because I also work with youth, I can only tell you verbally that what you've done is wrong.
Man,
and I took my godchild upstairs, and I was like, I was real tempted. I almost took off my belt too.
You don't beat their kids anymore. That's the problem. People don't beat their kids enough anymore.
Well, you know what?
Beating and spanking are 2 different things.
Semantics. Tomato.
This happened on 23rd by McDonald's. What was it? McDonald Avenue.
Oh, yeah. Man.
So I was driving home from work, and I was dropping off my coworker in his house near the area, and we were driving, and there was traffic, so there's a bunch of cars right there, and these kids, they were teenagers, they threw a open water bottle inside cars that had their windows down. It was in the summertime, and me and my coworker were in an argument. We were not in a good mood. We were arguing in traffic. They threw a soda from McDonald's, threw it inside our car. As soon as that happened, I immediately just pulled over. There was about 8 of them, and we both got out of the car. We kind of ran after them. I mean, we didn't have control over,
It's just I need to do something.
Yeah,
like, you just threw a bottle at my car. I got to do something.
23, 24 at the time. We were hotheads, so they threw it in there. We just immediately pulled over. We got out of the car, and they just scattered like pigeons. But that day, like I was gonna slap somebody.
As the kids would say, they wanted none of the smoke.
No. But I mean, I don't see a lot of that anymore. I mean, that's as much as I used to see it, because it was we've had. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the parenting is changing around in Richmond, or
I still see it because I door knock now. I mean, I kind of think like the.
Oh, so you still do the door knocking?
No, yeah, I do. I still do community organizing and on the city council at the same time. Yeah. So I mean, I do see it a lot, and I mean, I have actually seen like. What's been shocking to me is like more kids actually take like legitimate curiosity as to like what's happening. Like I remember when I was door knocking around the foreclosure crisis, we were fighting for a program to fix people's mortgages because their house would be worth like $200,000, but they're paying off a mortgage of like $500,000 still, and their bank ain't trying to readjust it to where they just are paying like whatever the house is worth. So whenever I door knock some kids about this, I remember a kid asking me like, wait, what does it mean for your house to be underwater? I was like, he was actually curious, like, what's happening? What's going on? And, at the time, Xbox 360 was still hot. And he was just playing FIFA on it. I think it was like FIFA 2014. And I just looked at him. I said, you know how much an Xbox costs, right? I'm like, yeah. And it's like $200? Yeah. Now, imagine that Xbox being $200, but someone's telling you to pay $500 for it. Do you think that's right? Nah, that's what they basically doing with this house right now. That's why I need to talk to your mom, but just give her this flyer and you have a good night.
See that's what I mean by being young, and you can still you can relate to someone like that. That's a big difference,
right? Because one of those Gandalf or Palpatine individuals up there that you're working with would be like, now,
come here,
now, what is this? The Nintendo you own, kid? And
sometimes it's just very, very condescending as shit. I'm like, yo, like. No, don't talk to me like that. You are not my parent. I know who my parents are. One of them died before I was born, and the other one is waiting for me to bring her some groceries. You do not talk to me this way. But yeah, no, I mean,
did you get a lot of that when you were running?
I got a lot of it when I was running, and
like slow down kid kind of a thing.
Well, not even like a slow down kid thing. I mean, how you got your supporters. You got people that will support you. They're down for you, and they'll back you up and actually talk to you like a human being. Yeah. I would have other people describe to me how I probably should be feeling. Like, I know this is scary and this is very intimidating, Melvin, but just know we will be here for you. You have all the support you need. We can get you a whole list of folks to support as well. Like, new people, I'm just meeting for the first time. Like, you and I have never had a conversation.
Still Illuminati.
Like, I've seen you. I've seen you 5 times in my life, and most of it was this year.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Well, the way I figure it is any smart politician holding office would make it their business to reach out and attempt to make allies, especially of potentially young and potentially impressionable colleagues.
Exactly.
Right?
Emphasis on the impressionable part.
If you do this,
every Palpatine needs an Anakin.
Yeah, but what they didn't realize is I watched Star Wars thoroughly. I I learned.
You can't bring him back to
lessons.
life.
Okay. I'm not one to be manipulated. I pride myself on being stubborn. I made a bunch of people laugh during a whole hour of me having a standoff with the site supervisor for not bringing me my ID to school. I said, I forgot. Well, I'm going to buy you another one. I was like, that is unnecessary. I have one at home, sir. There's no need for you to buy me one. Well, someone needs to bring you one. Mama doesn't drive. What about her friends? They all at work. Any other questions? Like, you just so stubborn, sir. Thank you very much. He's like, what if your kids were as stubborn as you? I was like, gee, sir, where do you think I got it from? After an hour and 10 minutes, they issued me a temporary ID, and I went on to the rest of my classes. I'm like, I'm glad we had this conversation. I am stubborn, so when people try to manipulate me, I'm like, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm also not Play-Doh, too. You can't mold me. I'm a brick. You got to break me down and reforge me before I'll go with you. So
even
more Play-Doh than Play-Doh.
Yeah,
even
exactly.
if they offered you, like, you know what, man, you do this, once you're in office, you'll never have to pay for gasoline again.
As much as that's, and I also watched a lot of
chicken in every pot in a car.
I also watched a lot of movies too, and one thing that I learned is never make deals with the devil. The movie Bedazzled, starring Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, is a good learning lesson about not compromising your values for the sake of something you really, really want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as silly as those movies are, it's like, no, there are actual real people in life that will want you to compromise your integrity or make you feel like you're not as smart as you should be, preventing you from really wanting to tap into whatever potentials actually in you are building up confidence, wanting to build dependence instead. Like, that's how we do have politicians that are completely dependent on, like, the Democratic Party, or completely dependent on the Republican Party, or dependent on whoever. I can actually say the people I'm dependent on are folks I work with in the community that have no stake in this other than the fact they just want to see change. Now, we're going to be disagreeing on how that moves forward, but that's part of a democracy. It's disagreeing, it's talking, coming up with compromises, learn, repeat, and just do the best you can with integrity, not corrupt it because people want to gain power. And there's a lot of power-hungry individuals around there that I have to constantly be on the lookout for. So, this is why I stay as a community organizer and tell people politicians ain't nothing. They just a lot of hype, just a lot of shows and stuff, but cut off the PG&E, they ain't gonna have that lights behind them. It's just gonna be a person in front of you just like you. Oh, my bad.
No.
This is great. This is great. Excellent.
No. Yeah.
Y'all shouldn't have gave me this coffee.
No. It's a power of Folgers, man. I thought,
this is secretly a commercial. That's the real.
We're over here brand naming the coffee, and they haven't paid us a red cent yet.
Folgers is sponsoring his 20 campaign.
I take no corporate donations, but I do enjoy a good cup in the morning.
Now,
so you're running again, right?
Yeah, I'm running again. I told people, jokingly and seriously, like, well, so far nobody outside of who already did hates me completely. So yeah, I'll run. The moment people are just like, no, you just need to go, terrible. All right, fine. I'll go sit down and figure out what other project I could work on in life.
Well, when you ran, how long did it take you to decide to make that decision? Because I mean, I'm sure that was draining to run for. I
was being pushed to run for like a few years, like for a while, but I was like moving around, like going through some personal issues of my own and everything, and then I was still helping out my mom all the time because that's all I've really got in the world. So I wasn't trying to think about running. I'm like, the people I see up on that dais, in general, at least from my perception, have their life together more than I do. So before I take on the big responsibility of being one vote out of 7 for a population of 110,000 people in the community for the next 4 years, maybe I want to have my life a little bit together too.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is in 2015, when rent control started to become the big issue, is because we identified people that got anywhere between $200 to $600 increases, some as much as double the original rent. And, you know, just seeing so many people just being priced out, kicked out unfairly. And we were organizing tenants to like fight back, stay in their homes, fight these evictions, organizing tenant clinics. And we knew the possibility of the need for rent control and just cause for eviction. And a lot of tenants got organized and pushed for that. And it ended up getting voted in on July 21st, 2015 at about 1:35 in the morning. And it was a victory. Everybody was happy. But what took place after that was that shady petition went around saying, hey, do you want a stronger rent control sign here? Nobody had the details. Nobody read the petition. It was a petition to revoke the city council's decision, basically. Wow. They got 7,000 signatures, even people that did support rent control. A lot of them actually. It got revoked. It got suspended the day before it was going to go into effect. The day before it was going to go into effect, they turned the petitions in, and it was suspended before it was going to be enacted.
So read what you signed.
Yes, read what you signed.
Christmas. All that time spent in school, and then they just don't bother to read.
But, yeah, and then, so we gathered petitions again. We organized people, got enough to get it back on the ballot. And at the time, with all the candidates that was running, it was like maybe one or two that was really supporting rent control, but everybody was like killing it. They were like trying to go after it, you know, fear mongering, saying if you do this, you're just only going to cause more harm than good. And when I ran, it was because I was like one of the main people that was like supporting rent control. I've been around for a while too, and I've been working on my voice enough in a way I can represent issues and talk about things to where I can actively be able to represent issues. So it's like, hey, just run, you know, this is a last minute thing, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to win anyway, but at least I could defend rent control and represent all these other issues and do what I do as an organizer: talk to people, bring people together, come together, get power in numbers, develop solutions, and figure out how we can push for those solutions. And I like about 10 days before filing, I submitted my paperwork. I worked with a bunch of political organizations like RPA, so they had a team of folks that were willing to support me. They endorsed me. Other organizations that had a C4 status that worked with me, they did an endorsement process, interviewed me in like the first month of starting, and it was like 3 months from election. So going through this round of endorsements and meeting with folks that I already had connections with from the various projects I worked on across many issues, and just fought like hell to represent rent control and never compromise my integrity. And people came after me. I felt like I was the main one that was actually taking shots in 2016. I'm like, there were like 9 other candidates for you for your own disposal. What is it about my Drake Hole-esque face that makes y'all want to go after me?
Don't go down that motorcade, man. The grassy knoll.
Like the only time nobody was like talking about me was when they was just talking about somebody else who was already on the council. I'm like, what about these other? What of the others? Come on,
But you're the threat. So it was just like,
and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do what I do, represent my issues, be me, be responsible, and show up and do what it is I said I was gonna do, because this is my work. This is what I believe in, and this is what I care about. And lo and behold, we get to election day. It was the first results came in. I was in second place, and then after that, I was the top vote getter. And taking the experience I had in school of just being completely bullied by everybody, and made me feel like I was less than a person, to developing this exterior shell. I felt like I was ready to step into it. And I'm just about learning. I recognize I'm not the smartest person on the planet, and there are people out there with information that can help me and help the people I work with and work for in order to build the community that people want to see based on the conversations we have. So I always seek it out.
I often feel that a president is only as good as his cabinet.
Well,
And I'll say this:
Amazon isn't in my cabinet. I'll just let you know.
You surround yourself with good advisors.
Yeah.
It shows wisdom on the part of the person assigning the people, and it also it fills in the gaps of what they may not know.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about a certain individual seems to fire members of his cabinet every other month. It's like they're gone, they're gone, they're gone, they're gone, they're gone, they're gone. What's going on?
I'll say this, man. I first heard about that you were running, and I like when I saw your picture, you looked familiar, and we became Facebook friends shortly after that. But I first heard about you through, I forget his name, Feilaberger. Yeah. Because
I've been going to Filiburgers since I was a kid.
Me too, since I was a child, and he, I don't know, a couple of years, like 10 years ago, he took over. It was his parents, and man, I'm trying to remember his name, but I was
Sam.
There you go.
Yeah,
I was sitting there eating, and we were talking about, he was talking to me about how I should be more involved with the city of Richmond, since I was from there, with my stand-up comedy, and something, your name came up, and then I saw your that you were running, and then I was like, oh man, it got me interested in what's going on with the policies and whatnot. So if anything, that's why I wanted to have you on, because that got me interested in local politics more. I mean, now I'm living here, but I still look at what's still going on over there because it's so close. And at the time, I mean, we lost our home in the area, so it just
like a lot of people, they lost their home, got displaced, wanting to live in Richmond, but they're like, all I could do was visit at this point.
Right. A lot of loved ones are living out in Antioch because that's the only place they can afford now, and it's and it got me to look at that more, because everything that's happening in the city, in San Francisco, Oakland, like it's already, like you said, it's already happening here.
Yeah.
And
like there was like a study that looked at the Black Nexus, the African American population, like in the 1950s, were more than 50% of the population of Richmond. Now we're in the lower 15-16% possibly. And you notice how all the other populations in surrounding cities started to, their populations of African Americans went up, and then you start to look at the rents and wages and everything and where these classes are. So you're seeing like housing prices and cost of living go up, and the population of the community go down based on race, and most vulnerable, which is Black and Latinos in this community. So that's just like the other scary thing now being in this. It used to be all whimsically like, oh, I'm just like just home, I get to go to work, that's good policy here and there, it's good. And then you just see this like weight of like displacement and how cruel people can be, or just like really asserting their rights, and especially just saying, oh yeah, people can live here if you can afford it. I'm like,
oh wow.
Jesus was, please just take my hand.
Because there's so much you'd like to say.
I'm running for office.
Yeah, no, that the filter that I've had to work on myself has been phenomenal.
True test of your patience, huh? Well, you can let it all out here at the voice party.
Yeah, exactly.
We got no filter here.
We got no filter here.
You can
some filters.
Just
some
as
filters.
Some filters. We got to cut some stuff out every now and then.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'll be filter. I'll be unfiltered more when the mics go off. Nobody wants to know a person completely. Do you really want to know what this person looks like when he goes to the bathroom? Do you want to just hear I'm going to the shower? Or do you want to be there for the whole experience? Nobody wants to really know 100%, and nobody wants to hear there's some topics that you can even have with your best friend that you just don't talk about. Like, I love you to death, I would die for you, but don't you ever talk to me about that.
I mean, I would say this for every
that's why everybody has a diary.
For every strange taboo that will turn the majority of us off, I guarantee you there is that one Elvis fan that would have died to have a picture of Elvis when they found him sitting on the toilet. He died. He passed away. There's that one weirdo out there who's like, I need that on my wall. with all my other Elvis memorabilia.
You're very cynical because I actually believe that there is probably 100,000 people that would want that photo.
Oh yeah.
You're very cynical. Have a little bit more optimism, sir. Come on.
People take those kind of pictures with unknown people. So look at what Logan Paul did. Or was it Logan Paul?
Have you not seen like the reality TV shows of stuff people hoard and buy and barter with, and you think that only one person on the planet of Earth wants to see Elvis? I'd be surprised if one. I'll say this, maybe, and I'm sure that out of that 100,000 people, 1,000 of them or more would make an altar out of that photo, and a few of them would come up with a pose and dance on how to represent it, because I have seen people do this or came across some folks say this, and I'm like, hey, if you're happy and not hurting anybody, that's on you. I will not be participating myself, and I'm not going to judge.
I'm not going to yuck your
But
yum.
this is something that I am going to cherish with me, and I might have to make fun of, but I make fun of myself too, so it's okay, kind of.
All things being equal.
I can imagine someone having an altar with that picture, like when you're hanging out with them and you get drunk, like, dude, you want to see something? It's like, only my wife knows about this.
Like, that's like the true test of passing through the fires of our friendship. Like, you've not been hanging out for a real good time. You want to see my altar? It's to the king. And as far as I'm concerned, all he's sitting on is a throne.
Porcelain though it may be.
A man has to have a place to do his shit every now and then. I mean, come on. I didn't want to segue at this moment, but I was like, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what's your goal for the next time, for your next campaign? To have a place to sit down and do my shit. That's my goal. Well,
Elvis statue in Nickel Park.
In truth, it seems that a lot of your good work has actually been an endeavor to make sure that people can keep the places where they can sit down and have their shit. And
exactly. Nobody wants to be mobile and shit all the time. I mean, come on, mobile. That's why we need to sit. We need to be secure.
Exactly.
And you're right. That has been. But no,
sanitation's important after all.
Sanitation. Oh man.
Hey, I mean, they got a book saying everybody that poops. So if we can't talk about shit here when there's a book out there for children, I mean, come on, how are we really adults? And am I lying?
You are certainly not, sir.
No, I mean, really, like, looking at this year, there's still like a jumble of stuff that's happened from last year that it needs to be dealt with. Like, go ahead, let it out. It's good. Everybody gotta let it out. But right now, because we are being sued by an attorney from Walnut Creek, or he's representing plaintiffs that are wanting to sue the city of Richmond to go into districts. Richmond's actually going into district election, so it will no longer be at large. Whereas before, the entire city would vote for whoever was on the ballot, and top 3 people that get the most votes, bam, go. That's your representatives for the whole city. Now they're going to be chopping up the city into 6 districts, and 6 council members will represent a portion of the city of Richmond. So you'll have like the North and East district, you'll have like Santa Fe, Marina Bay, however they get chopped up.
Oh wow.
Now, I've always been against that because I'm like, that just... that's almost like gang territory banging, kind of like, that ain't what I'm concerned in my district. Well, I'm fine over here. Why should I care about what's happening over there? Because we already got that. And I feel like that's only going to exacerbate
the problem.
Yeah. But there are cities in California that have clusters and cul-de-sacs of people of color in certain districts, particularly as we're talking about Latinos, that are filled with boards and councils that are all white, but not one Latino representative. So there was a policy that I'm not completely adept to, but I understand the basic meaning of it, was that if there is ever an identified marginalized community of a protective class that wants to basically go into districts or fight for that representation, then cities are obligated, and counties or district or boards are obligated to make sure that that progressive protected class has every right of an opportunity to be represented. Therefore, going into districts and making sure they have a district at least of one protected class, which Latinos in this group are what we're talking about right now, and how they're represented it. Now we got to go into district elections, and I asked the question, like, what if, all right, they pulled up the example, actually, like if a city was entirely, let's just say, one race completely, and somebody sued over this district stuff, the bar is so low you would still have to do it. So here are your options. You pay a little bit now to go into it, or you fight a lawsuit. You're probably more than likely going to lose, and then you still gotta go in the district anyway. So I didn't vote for it because I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I can't. Like, it's not, I can't. I know the situation we're in, but I can't do this because I just fundamentally do not agree with how this is going about. And, oh, yeah, the other thing that made me mad about this, even if we put this on the ballot and people in the city decided that they did not want to go into districts, it doesn't matter because this lawsuit is still looming. Oh, yeah. So we got to figure out what the districts are going to look like. We're going to have to re-update the maps again because they're working on 2010 census data. Wow. A decade has passed. A lot has changed in 10 years. Very much as a lot of change as 10 years. I have a full goatee now. Used to just be a mustache and something on my chin. It is full.
Half of San Francisco's moved into Richmond.
Exactly. Richmond is the new San Francisco.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, then they're going to have to update it from the 2020 census data, and then we're going to have to see how those lines look then and how the districts will be broken down, and we're doing it in 2 phases. So that's coming up. So just figuring out how I'm going to navigate through that and make the best possible decision out of a crappy situation. And actually, the schools and communities first petition that's going around to reform Prop 13. And for those that don't know what Prop 13 are, basically not the exact date. I keep on getting it jumbled up, but I think it was like back in 1978, like 1970s. Prop 13 was passed to basically keep people's tax rates that they pay on their property at that rate for back then. Benefit for homeowners, and that's how it was sold for homeowners, which is good. Keep homeowners' taxes low. Nobody wants to argue with that. Right. However, for your major commercial properties all around the California coast that make multi-billion dollars internationally, who are still paying for those property tax rates and will be paying those forever because nobody ever really moves out of a corporation, do they?
No.
Or out of a property. Yeah. If it's so, it's not for like 100 years or at least half a century. Right. You'll see that.
Eventually, they'll go the way of Toys R Us, but not yet.
Yeah, eventually. And yeah, so the main folks that get to benefit from this are not the homeowners that signed up at that time. Some are still living in their homes, and that's good. But some have either lost their homes, have moved out, or maybe left it to somebody else, but that hardly happens. So the schools and communities first petition, it just intends to close that loophole, leaving homeowners alone and selling it like, yeah, your homeowners, your taxes, you're not going to be touched. But for commercial properties, you're going to be paying your fair share in taxes, which will lead to $11 billion in new revenue to California. So we can actually start libraries that need to be updated desperately, being able to pay workers benefits and COLAs and things.
Christmas,
all of that. All of that.
Teachers are underpaid. Aides are underpaid.
Wait, are you in the West County school district?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Sorry.
It's good work. It's you know what?
It better be.
It's
They got you working for slave wages.
it's good work.
That
but
attorney hit the West County School District and took over $300,000 and some odd from that lawsuit to force them into districts. And yeah, and I've heard about all the other fun things that are happening that are not so fun.
Oh no, so many things. So many things are not so fun. I know that for my particular division. See, I'm an instructional aide, right? So I was told coming into this that in the 90s they used to pay us more, arguably living wages. And then the district got into some financial trouble and they said, look, we're going to have to cut your wages until we can get out of debt and et cetera, et cetera. We're long past the debt and it's like, where are we going to get paid the way we... Nope. Okay. The Teamsters Union, which took over about a year or so ago, has made a few strides in helping us out. But I'm kind of hoping that
the Teamsters Union are helping you guys out.
Well, we're Teamsters now. Before we were Local 1.
Aren't they bankrupt now?
Huh?
Aren't they bankrupt now? The Teamsters Union?
The Teamsters? They're mafia. Can't bankrupt the mafia. That's just the paperwork. That's just the Yeah, I said it. I'll probably have Louis the Knuckles show up at my house tomorrow and be like, what is it you were saying about the Teamsters on your show? And I'll be like, well, look, Louis, come on, it's a podcast. It's hyperbole. Come on, buddy.
That's all well and good and everything, but is Louis the Knuckle going to come to my house just by association?
No,
you
you're
was
all
there
right.
too.
As long as you come with a pizza.
If anything, they'll
I
come
just
to
need
your
to
house
know
and
how
be like,
Macaulay Coke in my home just in case.
You got to understand how the mob works, though. They'll come to you, you're a politician, be like, hey, we do you a favor, you do us a favor. You want us to go visit somebody? You want us to go hold somebody by the ankles over the bay? You know what I mean? Just make sure you remember us when you get a little higher. You get a little. What you want to run for? You want to run for president? We did.
You'll never pay for gasoline.
We did wonders for Kennedy. We do one.
It's like, how about this? I do want y'all to visit something. I want y'all to visit the exit door of my office. And if you want ankles in the bay, I suggest you head down to Keller's Beach, take your shoes and socks off, and walk up into your ankles into the bay. See how you like it. You might have been missing out on something this whole time. You've been providing the service. You've been denying yourself, sir. Meet the exit. Go to the beach. I swear that is all I need you to do. And after that, never talk to me again. In the name of Jesus.
His name was Melvin. He will be remembered. After you tell him that. Oh, man. No, dude. Man.
They might actually respectfully walk out.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That was really good. I'm on my way.
I'll just say have a good day. Be blessed. Or would you like a coffee or a crumpet or the cards to other council members that want your favors? Because I certainly don't. But network, sir. The offices are right next to each other. Go next door.
You would not take that, but man, it's crazy how so many others would. Oh yeah, you know what? Go visit this guy named Melvin. He's ruffling up some feathers that we don't.
I was like, man, there are people out there like John Powell who works for Haas Institute for Fair and Inclusive Society. If you go to their website, they've released a bunch of reports, especially really centered around Richmond, around gentrification, displacement studies on, people's impacted. But because of some of those studies, John Powell came out to a few events and he said that because of the work that he does, he's actually gotten like real life death threats to his house, like people sending him letters to his house and everything, threatening his life. So I mean, I know this track that people get in, I just started in as an organizer. I just describe myself, man, I'm just a motherfucker trying to help. I'm not the smartest person ever. I just want to, I see a good thing. I feel good about this. I work with people. I see how something can help. That's all I can do. If I can't fit in this one area, where can I fit in to help push it forward at least? That is it. Oh, you need someone to yell? Okay, I'll be a chant leader, yell. You need somebody to drop off a letter? I'll drop off a letter. You need somebody to be at this meeting and work with people? Okay, I'll do that. You need to facilitate a meeting, invite people out? Okay, like that's how I climbed up into this.
Yeah.
And I just still maintain that. I just do what I can when I can to help out and learn as I go and make the best possible decisions out of sometimes a very shitty situation.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the lines, though, I've heard of many folks that have gone into office and many of their supporters walk up and tell me, like, when I first met them, they were just great, awesome. But somewhere along the lines, they got in that office and completely changed, even turned against me. And
Yeah.
you know, people talk to you differently.
Power corrupts, man.
Yeah, power corrupts, but also changes people's communication of you too. Like
Yeah.
everybody all of a sudden is very, very nice. At least everybody that wants something.
Yeah.
They're like very nice. They're always very reasonable, but that's the game. You got to be nice and reasonable, represent your issues, and it could be easy to lose sight on what you first ran to begin with. I mean, we don't hold on to our ideals and values, or it can be anybody's fool. And, you know, a lot of the issues we get in, they're not easy. They're complicated as hell. And no matter what anybody says to you, some of the issues we talk about, you can bring all the studies on the planet and all the people on the planet, but we're never really going to be able to predict what's going to happen until we make that decision and move forward. And sometimes, because no one knows what's going to happen, and when issues get complicated, it's easy to get bought into the whole, like, stop, you know, let's wait, maybe let's study this issue here, let's talk about it, let's get stakeholders or whatever. And it's always very reasonable. Of course it is. But you got to ask yourself, what are your values and what are you here to represent? Like, why did you come here to begin with? How much are you willing to compromise yourself for this thing in order to pass it? Or just, do you care at all? Or how much do you actually care about it? And me, my values in the people I work with, the folks I support, the folks that have supported me, and the folks that come from a place of just wanting to help the community and build a safer, more sustainable, affordable place to live that we can thrive in, not have to suffer from impacts because big money says, hey, we need to do this thing, but we will upgrade your tax revenue. We will open up these programs, but we need to do this one thing that might hurt you 40, 50 years down the line. But right now, you're going to get this. We're going to be counting on that we all going to be gone by the time this decision is done. But you'll get this. I mean, and that you know, that sometimes it gets sold. I get sold so many ideas like, this is what's going to benefit the community. I'm like, okay, so that you actually talk to the community, though, about this benefiting them. Because if you did not talk to them, how do you know? Have you ever heard of Columbus? I'm sure he thought he had a lot of benefits he brought with him, too. He charted some maps. That was a benefit, but I don't think it ended very well.
Not in the least. I mean, you know, the Italians got tomatoes out of it. As much as I love pasta, I don't know if all the misery and the indentured servitude really, you know, justifies that, but whatever.
I mean, that was a
I
good
might get
tomato,
meatballs after
but
the show.
you know, that was a good tomato, but a tomato that I enjoyed maybe a week before spoiling versus chains and blisters and dirt on my hand and being whipped forever. That was a benefit. You brought the cost, though.
Not worth it.
Maybe we
Not
could.
worth it. Not worth the marinade.
Maybe we can negotiate.
Maybe another bowl of pasta will make me decide. You know,
I mean, if anything, they got the better half of the deal. Hey, but you know, I'll say this: the indentured servitude, the blisters and the chains only lasted for what, a couple of generations? We can still sit down today, my friends, at the macaroni grill and enjoy a plethora of tomato-based inspired
pasta
dishes.
outlasted the chains.
And that is exactly how people talk to me about every issue. Like, you know, there's just kind of nothing we can do. This is the best we can do, though. And hey, we can enjoy a lot of this. right? But hey, even though a couple decades of indentured servitude with 400 years of psychological torment that, oh, why are you so angry? I don't know. My ancestors suffered a lot and they just passed it on to me. I'm working through it on their behalf.
PTSD is hereditary.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you another question that in your work, is there an organization that you see that's working within Richmond that's doing a lot of good that you want to, like, maybe if you get elected that you would want to work with, or hopefully if you get elected you could come back,
Well,
like,
I mean, yeah,
I'm kidding.
that's why I said, politicians are just people too. We
Yeah,
ain't
yeah.
more special or more of an asshole than anybody else on this planet. We are the person walking in a grocery store. Hopefully they're not rude. Hopefully they're nice. Maybe because I got one item that let me go ahead over their two baskets. I don't know. But that's all politicians are too.
Right.
They're just people. But they like to, some of them like to think I'm special because I won a popularity contest. That means I'm important. No. Yeah. You just won a popularity contest, and a couple of things you said were not completely integral, but people aren't going to follow up on this necessarily, so you just got away with it. But hey.
I imagine it was so much easier back in the day when you had people running for office and they were going on railroad, and then you could go to one community and say, I'm for the coal miners, and I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then you go to another community and then flip it completely differently. Yeah. And like, just kind of hope that they're not reading each other's newspapers, right? Because it's several hundred miles away, and then, oh, wait, he didn't do this when he got in office. He didn't do this either. Well, Jesus.
Yeah, now you got internet and background checks and social media and everything. Like, it's just like, whoa. That's just a lot of ways to know about somebody real quick. I remember, I won't say the person's name, but there was actually one dude that did that exact thing you said. They was saying all this stuff that they did, and out of nowhere a video got posted, and they quoted his words and said, never did this, never did that, never did that. And the video was like going up and down, like just to show zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, just to really catch your attention. I was like, you see, that's the bad thing about social media. You got to be careful what you say, because somebody will find you at another thing and be like, sir, I got another video saying you said the opposite.
That's why I'll never run for office.
Which is why telling the truth is important. See, you can run for office. All you have to do is be honest. And then if somebody asks you a hard question that you're not really for, but you don't want to disappoint, deflect with a joke. You're funny as heck.
I'm sure there's videos out there of me having breakdowns. So,
just don't actively piss off people. Actively, I mean, like, if someone talks mess about
that's
you,
Saturday night for me. I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, everybody has to have a Saturday night.
Yeah.
I work with a bunch of organizations all the time anyway. Like, I work with ACE. That's who I've worked with for over 8.5 years. There's Richmond Progressive Alliance. There's Urban TILF. There's the California Nurses Association. The SEIU's 10 to 1 Safe Return Project, and so many people. APEN. There's so many groups out there that have been doing local grassroots work, and the Rise Center and everything. Like, it's actually me staying connected with them that keeps me anchored in my values too, because I try to have a good heart, a good moral compass, but I can't feel the same agitation for every issue that everybody else has. I have to work with people to understand, what is the severity of things that are happening and how important it is to, pass this public policy or take action and exhibit X, Y, or Z. You got to work with people. You got to work with the folks with those experience. I can read about it. I can see the data, schematics or whatever, but, the personal experience, the stuff that people see at home, the stuff people are living with every day, that's the reason to do stuff. That's the reason to fight for anything. It's not what's said on paper, it's what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, as you mentioned about reading schematics, and I don't think it's ever come up in any media that I've seen where anyone in your position has been asked this question. People just assume, okay, well, they're knowledgeable, so what? Or people assume, oh, they went to whatever Ivy League or so what. But I will ask you, how do you do your research for the laws that come up, for the props? I mean, where do you go? Do you just Google it, or are you old school? Do you go in and you look at the old law books, and what's your process?
Well, me, because I've been doing this work for 8 years and I'm connected with a vast variety of group of organizations, a lot of the stuff out there is very, very complicated, but there are people that care about the issues who I can recognize their values and everything that I can talk and ask questions about, their recommendations on this issue or that one, because more than likely I'm pushing for an issue too that I'm going to want them to support, and then they're going to come back and be like, well, can you support these props or that prop? So like even in the last election, there was a couple of the props to do with the hospitals and like staffing at the staffing at the hospitals too, and the kind of funding that came in, the dialysis one too. And that one got so many like mixed views from the various commercials and medias that came out to where I was confused, and I actually had to consult with like folks that I know in the healthcare field who have been like fighting like Save Doctors Hospital or Stop and Jail expansions. I'm like, if they're that down, I can talk to them and get an honest answer here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you gotta go out and do the research. I've had to too, and sometimes I've had like voter recommendation cards from like a research team or folks that were really, into an issue that they would talk to me. So when it finally came down to voting, I had what I need. But it is tough because you can never really predict how many things are going to be on the ballot. And you can never really predict how many things are going to be controversial on the ballot. I mean, sometimes you got the crazy ones like, hey, require pornos to have condoms. That was in the 2016 ballot when I ran. That was a proposition on the state ballot.
It's the only thing I voted for. No, just kidding.
Pornos need condoms. Yes.
Safety for the worker, right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were talking about pornos for condoms and legalizing marijuana. People had their priorities in 2016. And we elected Donald Trump too. Maybe that wasn't a good year. I don't know. I mean, I won, but ultimately, like, the stuff I'm thinking about is like, yo, people are dying.
Yeah.
We got homelessness out here. We got a shortage. Yeah. We got people being taken advantage of every single day, but let's talk about condoms and porno.
Is that really what we're voting on in 2016?
And this is the kind legalizing
of thing
marijuana.
Society
yes, let's do that. On. But how about along with legalizing that marijuana, we release the people that got locked up for possession of it, for having barely a dime sack, and they still serving X amount of years because of it. Like, I mean, the priorities that you'll find out there, some of them are ridiculous, and it's like, hey, why aren't we talking about this? But that's the other reason, like, why to get involved. Like, this Schools and Communities First petition is taking a statewide coalition of people constantly reaching out to more groups, stakeholders, or just people in general with a good compass to get this on the ballot, aiming to gather almost more than 1 million signatures just to make sure it qualifies by March. Like that's, but these are people that cared and they did the research, or they reached out to people to do the research to bring this information together, and they had to build power from a grassroots level. A lot of this stuff like takes time too. Like it really takes a lot of time, and it's frustrating and tedious, which is why I recommend like just have an issue that you care about and just lead from where you're at and grow from there. Don't try to lead from where somebody else is at. If you're good at one thing and not good at the other, be good at your thing and find somebody else who is good at the other that gives a damn just as much as you. Teamwork makes the dream work, after all. So if you don't know how to answer an issue on your ballot, I'm sure you know somebody in your network, maybe somebody in Canada, that can give you a good old information in order to vote the right way.
Of course. Of course. So it seems like, as you mentioned, someone who's in office is a person just like the rest of us. It seems like your method of doing things.
I like coffee too. Same
thing that I'm capable of doing too. It's like, oh yeah, I've done similar research. I may not have access to the teams and the vast amounts of organizations probably flooding me with pamphlets, but looking up an issue, it's like anybody. That's the beautiful thing about our democracy, is that anyone can go out and do their research and be an informed voter.
I also have a fun one too, the one that kind of makes it a little easier too, because you do get flooded with all that mail. Sometimes just look at the back on the proposition and just see who's paying for this.
Ah, there you go.
Like once you find that suspicious motherfucker, like, no sirree, Bob. Sometimes it's hard because you got two on each side, and that's when you got to ask a friend. But when it says paid for by Chevron, well, can Chevron, maybe if you charge $125 for gas instead of sending me this, we might have a conversation about me supporting this. But until then, sorry.
Oh,
Nope.
Man. I really appreciate you taking the time to. I do feel like I mean, more than ever now that I'm getting older, more of a responsibility to pay attention.
30 yet. Hold on, slow down.
Well, you know what?
Now that I'm getting
when I heard about you,
me like the Twilight is right here.
I mean, I'm 33.
I know. When I heard about that you were doing your work and I heard about you and I was like hungover and like I couldn't find my shirt. You're doing what you were doing. And I heard about it like, oh man, like that guy's my age. Like, can somebody help me find my shirt?
That's cool.
No, man, I got to tell you, I've been involved. It's weird. I don't. Spoiler alert. I sometimes forget that I am not a Richmond resident. As involved as I am in the city of Richmond, like I went to school in Richmond. I graduated from Kennedy High School. It's my alma mater, and then during that time there was the Richmond City Youth Council. They had cobbled together, and I was in that with Derek. What's his last? I can't think of his last name right now. Oh well, Derek Brock. Right? He was involved in that. Dorian Schaefer. And I was involved in these local regular meetings and very, very passionate for a while. And I think the first time I met you was at Ace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there since 2011.
Yeah.
North Richmond, first day.
And it's, and then with Go to Work Fitness, which is a show I co-produce, a lot of the stuff that we do is, some of the stuff that we do is very within the Richmond community. There's Moving Forward for Our Future. We'll film an episode about that. We mentioned Alamo Brown earlier. Every year he has the Soulful Softball Sunday. We are also there for that. And it's like, man, if I... sometimes I think to myself, I've been involved in the community so long, if I could move here, I'd run for city council myself.
We have talked about that in the past. We've talked about that, yeah.
Well, shoot, or at least work in some capacity in someone's office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's actually a good thing. Like I've always told people, like anybody can run, even if I disagree with you. If you want to run, that is your right. Just know what you're signing up for, because sometimes it sounds like it's all fun, like shit, I'm just gonna run for council, that sounds fun. Like I've seen people say they want to run because it sounds like a fun idea, why not? But I mean, it's like a serious thing, and it does take a lot out of somebody. So I never discourage anybody from running, even if they could threaten my position. I'm like, being ethical can be a motherfucker sometimes. I'm like, who am I to tell somebody not to run because it could threaten me? If you want to run, then if people like you more, well, that's the democracy and the values that we have built ourselves on, and you will reap what you sow one way or another. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? I prefer a nice little fuzzy quilt, to keep me warm at night. It's kind of cold. We've been having the cold spikes. That's what I want to. That's what I want sewed out of the things I read. I want it to be comfortable and nice. And I can confidently say none of the issues, all the issues I've worked on have had some sort of support in one capacity or another. And there are things that I've supported. I've never had to really, at all, compromise on the way I felt about something. Or if I, at most, I abstained from it after saying my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go out. I ain't going out quietly.
One thing that I
oh, sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. That's my fault. I think that it's all about putting yourself in a position to do the most good. Like I wouldn't think about my own hometown because it's El Cerrito. What are the city council people talking about over there? Well, Mrs. Mervin's cat got into the yard again, and we need to pass a new edition.
We need to find new ways to get Richmond people out of here and partying late nights.
And it's like they're good. That town is good. There's nothing. There's no need.
One thing that I do care about a lot is because Richmond is a hub for the arts, for a lot of artistic people that just come.
Yes, it is. It is. I have an interesting relationship with art. That's why it's
that, and I see that a lot of the people who are involved, like one particular name, Mikey Ramen. I'm sure you know that guy, right?
Yeah, and I definitely know Mikey Ramen.
Okay. He's the one person that your name came up, and it's like, this guy is for he's for the arts. That's where the conversation kind of went with him and I. That you're.
I wonder what he's basing that on. I mean, I'm not saying I'm against the arts. I'm like
maybe conversation.
We've talked about. I've talked about a few things with him. I've been at the bike shop.
Right.
I've talked about the burnt ramen with him. I haven't ever necessarily.
I didn't want to mention that, but yeah,
I haven't necessarily talked about the arts with him, but yes, sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I was like, wait, when was you and I talking about arts and crafts and drawing and stuff? What was I was like?
Well, supporting artists. It was more of a supporting artist.
Yeah.
Because it is. I mean, these guys are based out of there. There's a lot of most of the people that we've had on are from Richmond, and it's a good thing that's coming out of there based on like the history that it's had is turning a negative into a positive, and that's one thing that I am passionate about, and I see that you're connected with a lot of these people that are doing all that. What was I was gonna tie this. Basically, I'm thinking of ways to ask him for stuff that I want when he's in office.
You could just, you could try the direct approach too. Like, this is what I care about. What are your thoughts?
Well, like for example, a perfect example of this: the Bridge Storage Art Space.
Yeah.
Places like that are they especially for us.
Oh, the not just for us, but for the community in general, the potential.
Right.
For something like that,
have a place to go express yourself.
Why should Oakland have all the fun?
Exactly.
Fox Theater's cool. Let's get something popping off here in the Rich.
Yep.
Bridge Art Space was like an amazing place. Like actually, amazing. Tanya Polito, like whenever she was releasing her book, like that's where she held it at. And I mean, I got to know the Bridge Art Space a lot through Urban Tilth because they would throw these winter solstice parties over there, so I would just like get on my bicycle and just ride on down and everything, and not drink at the time, and awkwardly socialize with people because I had a lot of social anxiety. Still do, but it's easy when people talk to me because I can just like, okay, well, here's my opinion that you're actively asking it.
But
since you're engaging,
I feel comfortable now. He who cast the first stone, I won't cast the first one, but I'll throw it back at you. Just depends on how hard you throw it at me. Catch or an assault?
Still throw it at a cat.
No, not the cats. Animal love over here.
No. That to me, man, that's something that I do feel passionate about because a lot of that keeps people out of trouble and it brings people together, and like we do events at Bridge, and it's like people from North and Central and Point Richmond coming together all in one place, and it's this weird little, we live so close to each other, but yet it's a whole different world that we living in.
I've never been able to like it's always interesting when people bring that part up to me, like being North, Central, South, because I mean I recognize it, but I remember people gang banging over the apartment complexes they lived in, like the Crescents versus the Temples. It was like, this is public housing. Like,
It's like people are claiming their public housing as though they were like these weird
It's like in
fiefdoms.
like high school and
This
everything.
is
Like
not
I'm from the
Game of
temple.
Thrones.
Like
But
I
I'm
was like,
from the
yeah. But I mean, the interesting thing with me is when I grew up, it was like there was like a lot of bullying. Like I never really felt accepted anywhere. So whether I was in North, Central, or South, I was just expecting someone just to talk mess about me anyway.
Right,
you know,
right, yeah.
Be expected to like have to defend myself in some sort of altercation. Like I remember someone got in a fight. I got jumped because I said I was from Richmond, and because they were like, no, which part? I'm like, man, I'm just from Richmond. Who cares what part? I'm trying to go home. And the reason we fought is because he laid his hands on me. I'm like, I don't care if your friend is here. Don't touch me, sir. Just don't touch me. This may be a bad decision on my part, but do not touch me. I'm sorry. Like, who are you?
If only you knew 10 years from now, I'm have Louis come pay you a visit. Remember me, motherfucker?
Don't you know the Teamsters is my friends in 2 weeks? Like, what are you talking about?
Got rid of Hoffa. No, I'm just kidding. Oh man, I really want to wish you luck for your upcoming campaign, and
Thank you.
we'll support you for sure here at the Voice Party, and really appreciate you taking time to come out and talk to us, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, of course. And if there's any controversial issues coming into coming election, because it's 2020 with a Oompa Loompa as a president going up, schools and communities first, which is the biggest thing that this country is going to see in terms of corporate spending. So much controversy this year. If you want somebody to talk about it,
Dude,
whenever I got the time, I'll be like, okay.
We would love to have you back.
Here's what's happening today.
I'm always game to talk about the history making first orange skin president of the United States.
Hold on, that was insulting to the Oompa Loompas. The Oompa Loompas were not evil.
You saying he's not an Oompa Loompa? I was all excited when he was being elected. I was like, first Oompa Loompa elected to there. Look at those people, they're going from chocolate factory slaves to presidents. You can too.
He's like, he made it out. Like, I'm tired of that elevator flying, candy cane walking person. I'm going to the top.
Charlie let him go.
No, we got to blame it on Charlie. Thank you, Charlie.
Well, Charlie probably fired all of them. That's what happened. So.
Yep, and then this is what happens. You got someone that just says you're fired because he's still going through his trauma and decides to just make sure that the world wants to say to America, you're fired. The longer he continues, we have got to get rid of him for our own safety. That is just, in this case, it's just for our safety.
That's what we need, people like you in there. That's what, hopefully this.
I don't want don't keep that in the, I don't want no black paper bags. Like, we already got the mobsters are going to be coming talking to him for messing with the Teamsters. Now you're saying that's why we need you. The black bags will come, but the only black bags I'm worried about is where I'm washing my laundry out of. Can we not, please?
All right.
One thing at a time. It's 2020.
Okay. Well,
if anything, they'll dock my pay a couple days.
No, but
that's what they call taxes.
There you go.
Jesus. I hope we'll release this after he gets elected.
Or just at those parts that you feel like might piss a few 24 people off or taken out of context. Maybe just omit a voiceover. Just say,
All right. Just to refresh our listeners, when is the election coming up for you?
2020 in November this year. The first particular date, I actually have not looked at my calendar, but primaries this year is in March, not June. So for those of y'all that want to go vote in a primary, it's happening in March, not June.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
All righty then.
Man, thank you for stopping by, man.
All right. Perfect.
You got any last thing you wanna address, or you wanna the final thought that you have?
Moral of this conversation is that politicians may think they're special, but they're only people too, like me. So therefore, just let them know that they're not special, but if they earned your vote, then they deserve it.
Doesn't get better than that.
Wow, yeah, truer words have never been spoken. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, dude.
Mr. Melvin Willis.
Hey, man, there are people And don't be afraid to ask them to come on your podcast. Thank you for coming, man.
Invite the whole council one at a time, though, because otherwise that's a Brown Act. Then you got to invite people to your house and everything for an official public meeting at your podcast. I don't know if you want all that.
Palpatine and
the Palpatines and the Gandalf, couple of tree beards.
All right, man. That's been the voice party. We're out.
All right.